Hello, my name is Jay Stringfield. I'm very excited to be your English teacher this semester. What I want to do in this video is go over some of the essentials you need to know for accessing our web material. I realize that some of you may not have had a web class before. Some of you may have had a web class that you maybe did not have to access some of the features that I'm going to have you access for our class. So in this video, basically, I'm going to cover everything you need to know in order to access our course material on D2L and also in order to complete your responsibilities for the class. If at any time through the semester, if you're running into trouble or frustration in getting things submitted, I'd really recommend coming back to this video because it's going to be almost certainly covered in it. And of course, if you find that there's a question that's not covered in the video, feel free to ask me. You can email me at any time. So what you see on the screen is basically an example of a D2L shell. Okay, I've pulled up one of my previous English classes here. It's not going to look the exact same as what you'll see, but it'll look similar enough, I think, to help you out here. So what I want to go through is basically you'll have to do in our weekly updates, you'll have to access several of the tabs here on our D2L in order to complete responsibilities such as discussion board, such as tests, assessments, such as accessing our Dropbox for submitting homework and essays and things like that. So I'm going to show you how to use all of these features on D2L. Um, Before we get into that, though, I want to go ahead and remind you of the pace of our online classes. So basically how it's going to run as far as the timetable for this class, every Saturday morning by 8 o'clock, you will have an update. And this update will go over basically all of the material that we're going to cover for the week. So the update will be Saturday morning by 8 o'clock. And almost always the material is going to be due by Friday, 11:59 p.m. Okay, there may be some exceptions as far as like essays, you'll have longer than just a week to complete those. But most of the course responsibilities, you'll have a week to complete it. Of course, you can complete it before Friday, 11:59, and in fact, I'd want you to do so, but you do have a time window of about a week for our course responsibilities. Now, there are two exceptions because our first week, we start a little later in the week, so our first week, you won't have quite the full window, and of course, our final week will also be abbreviated. Uh, but the news announcements you receive will, of course, make the time deadlines very clear on when the material is due. Most of the time, though, you're looking at the time frame of Saturday morning. You get the new update, and then, of course, all the material we do by Friday, 11:59 p.m. Now, that time window of when that Friday 11:59 p.m. window closes, it will not reopen. That's going to be important to remember. So if, for example, you do not get a homework assignment submitted by 11:59 p.m. Friday, please know that you just did not get that homework submitted unless you make arrangements prior to that deadline passing. Um, let's talk a little bit about time management here because with web classes, time management is going to be especially essential. You do have quite a bit of freedom in when you choose to complete the course material. However, there can be some temptation to procrastinate a little bit in web classes. And let me just go ahead and kind of give you some advice. I think that if you log into D2L early in the week and you access the materials just to make sure that you can pull them up and just to make sure that you don't have any questions about what we're doing for the week. Even if you don't start working on the material right away, even if you know that, you know what, I've got a heavy work schedule, I'm not going to be able to start really doing this material until like Wednesday in the week. I'll say even if you know you can't really start completing the material yet, I really suggest even over the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, just making sure you can pull up all the material, making sure you understand the material, making sure there's no problems with files opening or sound files playing for you or anything like that. Because what you'll find is if you wait until the last minute to try to complete the responsibilities, if you wait until Friday night, you're going to find that that's when you run into problems of problems opening documents, problems getting coursework accessible in order for you to complete it. So there is a little bit of an exception to this. I don't want you to try to pull up a quiz, and we'll go over the assessments tab later. But the quiz, once you start a quiz, you have to take it. So everything else you can access and look it over before you have to actually do it. The assessments, that's going to be something where it says start quiz. If you click that, and there's a time limit for the quiz, so if you click start quiz, please know that you have started the quiz. So the quizzes, don't click start on those. Don't try to preview those until you are actually ready to take it. Okay? So let's go over through. I want to start basically with our discussion board, because the discussion board is going to be how I record your attendance in our first week. If you don't participate the first week of our class in the discussion board, that means that I will not record your attendance for financial aid purposes. So let's talk about how to complete that discussion board responsibility. When you go to your My Motlo page, to your D2L shell of our course, if you click on the communication tab, we will have here the discussion option to click on. Now, you won't see this long of a list starting off. We will, of course, every week we have a discussion, this list will get longer. This shell is a class that's already been completed, so you can see they've had quite a few discussions. They've had discussion board 9. So we'll start with discussion board 1, and what'll happen when you click on it, I'll probably have some information for you to read about what the discussion board's about. You as a student, this is going to be basically where we talk to each other. You will talk to your colleagues, you'll talk to me, I'll talk to you. This is going to be basically our classroom environment. So it's really important for you to take the discussion board seriously. I do take it seriously. It can be a lot of fun. It can be very interesting. I have a lot of fun as a teacher. I learn stuff new every semester through what you guys share with me and each other on the discussion board. Your uh, course policy sheet does detail things such as the length requirement for your discussion post. So please do look at the course policy sheet to see what those restrictions are, what those requirements are. But just to tell you, as far as what the minimum for any week that we have a discussion, and we won't have a discussion every week. I mean, you'll see on the coursework outline, I've specified the weeks that there is a discussion board requirement. But if there is a discussion board requirement for the week, um, you only have to do one minimum post. That being said, I really do encourage you to do more because, like I said, this is our classroom environment. So the discussion board, encourage you to post as much as you want to on it. Another huge request I have is to try to access the discussion board earlier in the week. Sometimes what happens, students don't get started on the discussion board until like late Wednesday or Thursday. And what we find in those cases is a rush at the very end of the week where most students aren't going to be able to realistically read through all of the discussion list material posted. So I encourage students to access the discussion board throughout the week. Keep in mind, if you're in a literature class of mine, that you don't have to have the literature completely read in order to access the discussion board. You can, of course, access the discussion board and just kind of post as you're reading. Um, Anything to stimulate the discussion as early in the week as possible, I'll really appreciate. And of course, I'll be on there too, responding to your insights and your questions. Now, as far as the discussion board goes, you've got a couple options. You can choose to either start your own new thread. As you see here, we've got 20 threads that have been started. We have 44 posts. And what that means basically, students here have created 20 different threads where the student just kind of click the option of start new thread. However, we've had a lot of students who have read another student's thread and chosen to reply to that thread. You can do either one, you can do both. But basically, either creating the thread or replying to someone else's thread, both of those work as ways to participate on the discussion board. Now, if we have a problem with the pace of participation, if we have a problem where the discussion boards not starting early in the week, what I'm going to do is end up resetting the deadline for when the discussion is due. Right now, the discussion at the beginning of the semester, and in the course policy sheet, it says this as well. Discussions are due by Friday, 11:59 p.m. However, if discussions um, are slow to start consistently, then you'll see a news announcement from me detailing that there will be a new earlier due date on any kind of discussion board responsibility we have. But hopefully that won't be the case. I really do look forward to seeing what you guys think. This is the best way for us to talk to each other through the discussion board. So let's go next to the course content tab. The course content, this is going to be basically how I can post everything I need to post for you guys to read. As far as important course files, um, right now there are two very important files we'll take a look at. That's going to be your course policy sheet and the coursework outline. So I'm going to go over here to the course materials, and we'll go down here to course content. Right now, you will not see a lot because, of course, as the semester goes, every week I'll add more to our course materials. Right now, you're seeing an example of an English 1010 class. And so if I go here to the table of contents, you see kind of everything that I've listed in a whole semester for this class. But you guys will get it 1 week at a time, so you should not hopefully be overwhelmed. I think as a student, this would be really overwhelming if I log in and I see all this stuff week one. I wouldn't really know where to start. So you won't be dealing with that, and you'll know exactly where to start because you'll have something we look at soon called a news update that'll tell you exactly what you're doing for the week. But the news update will probably direct you to here, our course materials. I want to point out two things here that I've already mentioned. This one has two important documents here. We have here for my English 1010 class, the course policy sheet. This is going to be basically the rules for your class. So whether you're 1010, 1020, whether you're a literature class, whatever class you are, you will have a course policy sheet. This is a really important document for you to study because we will have a quiz over this document. The document basically has all the rules I have for the class, so you know what my expectations are. Week one, you know what I expect you to do, and you also know how to do it. So we will have a quiz over this document. Please do access it, read it well, and of course, if you have any questions at all, you can contact me, and I'll be happy to clarify. The other important document you can access right now, you will have a coursework outline, and the coursework outline basically has a week-by-week breakdown of I've laid out all the weeks, and I've laid out basically here's what you're doing each week for our semester. So if you have a quiz, you will know on the coursework outline, I have a quiz this week. If there's an essay due, if we have a discussion board requirement, basically any responsibility you have as a student, you have right now a timetable of what those responsibilities are going to look like. Now, access this now and get your calendar out. Hopefully, you're keeping a calendar. My wife got me keeping a Google Calendar recently, and it's really helpful. I recommend you guys keeping a calendar because what you're going to find, for example, you're going to pull up here your coursework outline, and if you input into your calendar some of the material that's on our coursework outline, if you do that for all your classes, and hopefully all your classes do have a detailed coursework outline, they should, you're going to find that you have some nasty looking weeks, and it's unavoidable. But what you can do is plan ahead. You can let your work schedules, you can let your family know, and kind of do a preemptive strike for some weeks that you know are going to be pretty rough weeks as far as you have several commitments from your Motlo classes that are kind of all balling up for these weeks. So plan ahead, manage your time. For our class, at least, you do know with this document what each week's breakdown will be. So please do use that information. The only other thing I want to say about the course content tab, like I said, if it's an important document, I'll put it here. Some of the importance we have are going to be, and you see here, like we have to the side, we have all of these documents separated into modules. Now, I have it right now in the table of contents, so you see absolutely everything. But let's say that you want to have like a certain module, like here, I'm going to click, and this is basically all the documents for the class that relate to grammar. The modules can be a little misleading. I recommend you always click on the table of contents just to make sure you're not missing anything, because sometimes I have students where they're doing this view and they're like, oh, wait, I don't see that Mr. Stringfield's updated anything. It's because they're looking at a specific module and they don't have the big picture of the entire table of contents listed. Other than that, I will say that you will have assignment sheets for any important assignment that we have. The assignment sheet will be posted in our course content. And I do want to go ahead and caution, and I'll preach this in the coursework outline and the course policy sheet. I'll emphasize this a lot. But for any major assignment we have, you have to follow the directions of the assignment sheet. And any assignment that does not follow those directions would not receive a grade. So I'm saying this now, I'll continue to say it throughout the semester. Just please know that if we have an assignment sheet, it's important for you to access that assignment sheet, to assess what the directions are for the assignment, to ask me if you have questions, and I'll certainly answer them. And then, of course, to make sure before you turn in your assignment, which I'll show you in just a moment how to turn in the stuff. But before you turn anything in that's a major assignment, you've got to make sure that it follows all of the directions on the assignment sheet, okay? So before we get to the Dropbox, I want to go over the Assessments tab. So the Assessments, this is going to be where we do our quizzes. We may have some minor quizzes. We may have some major quizzes. We may have things like midterm exam if you're in certain classes of mine, final exams if you're in certain classes of mine. We have many quizzes in almost every class I teach online. You'll have a certain number of weekly quizzes. Basically, you access those through this tab, the Assessments tab. So I'll click on that, and we'll go down to Assessments. Excuse me. So right now you see that in my example here, it's empty because basically this course is over. But week by week, when we have quizzes available, you can access those quizzes by just clicking the Assessments tab, and it will pull up here if it's an active quiz. Basically, active means that the time window has not shut on it. You can access the quiz and take it. Keep in mind, you're going to have documents, you're going to have worksheets, you're going to have PowerPoints, you'll have lecture videos to help you prepare for any kind of weekly quiz. If you're in a composition class of mine, you'll have plenty of handouts, whether it be a grammar handout, whether it be a handout over something like the Toolman scheme. If you're in my English 1020 class, you're going to have worksheets to basically help you prepare for any quiz that you have. Make sure you prepare for the material for the week before you try to access and take the quiz. You want to study first, of course. I know it seems like that's obvious, but I have a lot of students who preemptively access the quiz and they try to take the quiz, but they do it before they've adequately prepared and studied to take the quiz. And then they say, Mr. Stringfield, I didn't do well. Can I take it again? The answer is no. You can only attempt a quiz once. So please do make sure that you prepare for the quiz before you try to take it. Now, if you're in a literature class, some of the stories you read are um, they're all great stories, but some of them are a bit challenging to digest on initial completion. So please know that if you're in a literature class of mine, I'm gonna have for almost everything, if it's basically a challenging reading selection, I'm gonna have a lecture video that you can check out and you can get the main core ideas that I want you to know. And those videos have a way of including material that's covered on the quiz anyway. So a little bit more information about the assessments. Please do be aware of the timeline. It's not the timeline, I'm sorry, for the time restriction. All quizzes that you have will have a time restriction that you need to be aware of before you start taking the quiz. I want you to be aware that most of the quizzes will have a very, very brief time window once you start taking it before you have to have it submitted. This is because almost all of my quizzes are just one question quizzes. And it's because I think either you get it or you don't. I really don't try to be tricky on my quizzes. Some students may disagree, but I believe I really don't think I'm trying to be tricky in quizzes. I really try to ask just general understanding quiz question over the week's material, and either you have it or you don't. Um, the good news about this is that you can find out pretty quickly if you need more reinforcement in that week's material. If you don't do well on the quiz, please don't think that your grade is destroyed in the class, because you see we have a lot of points in the class, but you can also know that the material that you take a quiz over, you'll probably see that material in some form at another time in the semester. So if you don't do well on a weekly quiz assessment, just know, okay, I didn't do well on this. I need to look at it again before I see this on, for example, the final exam or the midterm exam, or before I write an essay over it. So basically, just know the quizzes are a way for you to make sure you've mastered the week's principles. And if you haven't mastered those week's principles, just be aware that you'll probably have uh, a rematch in the future. Make sure you just know, if you don't do well in the quiz, to contact me and ask questions or review the material to prepare for when you see it again. A little bit more about quizzes. Let's see. Sometimes the quizzes are graded instantly, sometimes they're not. So please don't panic if you complete a quiz and it shows up as a 0. If you have a 0, whether it's a quiz grade or a homework grade, you're also going to have feedback saying why. But if you see a grade is a 0 and there's no feedback, that means I just have not graded it yet. So most of the quizzes will be automatically assessed. Some of the quizzes, though, I'll have to grade by hand. I'll have to grade them manually. And so that means I have to wait until the end of the week, and that means that there's going to be a delay into the next week before you get those quizzes graded. Okay, so please don't panic if you see a 0, unless you see a 0 with feedback. And then if that's the case, please do reach out to me to find out kind of how you can reinforce your class performance. Okay, let's see. Uh, okay, just to reinforce that the weekly time window you have, um, almost always quizzes will be due by Friday, 11:59 p.m. And please do be aware, if that window closes, it's closed. Unless you've made arrangements with me ahead of time to set up an extension for quiz material, we can't make those arrangements after the fact. So please do be aware of that. And don't miss those quizzes, because they do add up. I mean, I know it seems like, 10 points here, 20 points here, no big deal. But by the end of the semester, it is a big deal. So let's talk about the Dropbox. The Dropbox is going to be basically what you use to access homework assignments and also turn in those homework assignments. It'll be what you use to access essay assignments and turn in those essay assignments. It's a very important tab to be able to use. So we're going to go here to Assessments, and we'll go down to Dropbox. So you're going to see a lot here, because keep in mind, this is a class that's been done. They've had a lot of work to do. Major assignments, homework assignments, you're going to have basically anything you have to turn into me is going to have a Dropbox created for it. And the Dropbox will contain either an attached file with directions, or it'll have like a blurb giving the directions for the assignment. So make sure that you read the directions for the assignment before you try to complete it. Almost always if it's a homework assignment, you're going to have that window from Saturday to Friday to get it done. If it's a major paper assignment, of course you'll have more time, but please don't let those windows close, because for homework for essays, there are no late submissions allowed. So once the Dropbox folder closes, unless prior arrangements have been made, um, there are no extensions given. Okay. Um, Something else to keep in mind when you're doing the responsibilities of the Dropbox, and this isn't because Microsoft pays me, but this is in our course policy sheet. I need to say it here because I don't want it to be a problem. You've got to use Microsoft Word in turning in your Dropbox documents, okay? The good news is, as a Motlow student, you have free access to the entire Microsoft suite. If you go to Microsoft's website and you enter in your Motlow email address, you can sign up for a free download of the entire Microsoft Office suite. It's Microsoft 365. D2L just does not recognize other types of files very well. And what it leads to is I have students who attach homework attachments that I can't open. And that would count as non-submittal. So please know that you must use Microsoft Word in order to attach your Dropbox submissions. Any other type of file I will not accept. Now, if you do not have a PC, please be aware that Motlow has plenty of computer labs that are free for you to use. We have libraries all over our great state that you're welcome to go in and use their computer facilities. If it's a problem, please let me know about it as soon as possible so we can figure out a resolution. But once we have to start turning in those homeworks, and especially when we have to start turning in those essays, I don't want anybody to get a 0 grade because their file attachment was not openable with our D2L system. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Let's see, we're getting close to the end here. I've got just one more tab I want us to look at, and that is going to be the grade book. So you as a student have a responsibility. You've got some work on your shoulders, even more than the work I ask you to do. You've got to keep up with how you're doing in the class. That means that you need to be aware of what your grades are and why your grades are what they are. And what I mean by that is if you get a grade, especially if it's a grade that's lower than what you expect, please reach out to me, and if you have questions of why the grade is what it is, know that I have to justify, as your teacher, I have to be able to justify the grade that I give you. So if you get a grade back and you don't understand why, I hope it wouldn't be why it's so high. Really, if the grade is lower than you're expecting, um, please do reach out. For if the feedback doesn't really give enough input, I'm happy to arrange conferencing. You'll find for our major essays, there will be a rubric attached that goes through how you do in each category of the essay. But if you want more information, I'm happy to give it to you. You can contact me and we can arrange virtual conferencing options and things like that. But here's how you stay on top of your grades throughout the semester. You'll go here to the assessments tab, which we've already been to, right? And you'll go down to grades. And this will list the current grades. Some of them may not be graded yet, but you know what I'll try to do as I get things graded. I'll try to make news announcements to let you know, hey, this is graded, check it out. Um, it's important for you as a student to not be surprised at the end of the semester of what your final grade is. And in my class, at least, I can guarantee there's no reason that should be the case because for quizzes and for homework, I get those graded pretty quickly. We're looking at maybe a week. Sometimes maybe homework assignments, you may be 2 weeks out, but we're looking at a window of you being able to stay pretty well informed of how you're doing in the class. Now, when we get into essays, uh, those can take me a little bit longer, but I still do my best to get those graded within 2 weeks. Sometimes it may be a little longer than that. Um, but please know as a student that I want you to stay on top of how you're doing grade-wise in the course and also reaching out to me if you aren't doing as well as you want to for advice on what you need to improve, what you need to do to improve on it, okay? Now, you'll find in the course policy sheet that I do have a time window of how long you have to contact me about a grade dispute. And what this is for is because sometimes I have students who have a grade dispute that they bring to my attention at the end of the semester, and it's a grade dispute from, let's say, a grade item that's early in the semester. Basically, just too much time has passed for me to kind of remember what the problem was, to remember what was going on, and really for you, the student, to remember what was going on. So please do keep in mind that your grades, as they're posted, I'm happy to answer questions, and I do make mistakes. Please know that I married a mathematician. I am not one. So the grade book doesn't happen often, but it can have some errors. Please do bring those errors to my attention if they occur, and of course I'll be happy to fix them. But just know that as far as if you're at the end of the semester, I don't want a student to be like, well, I really think I should have done better on homework 2 and 3. I don't know why I didn't. I'm going to go find out why. There may not be a whole lot I can do. I'll do everything I can, but if it's at the end of the semester, I'm going to be much more limited on the specificity and the amount of feedback I can give you about that grade item. So I want to make sure we try to meet as soon as possible on any questions you have on it. Okay? Before I sign off here, guys, I've got just one more thing to bring you your attention. I promise it'll be worth your while. What you'll find every week on Saturday at 8 o'clock a.m., you're going to get a news update. And I know, like, it seems I've thrown a lot of stuff at you, and I kind of have, but the news updates try to make this a bit more accessible. So here you see some examples of updates for one of my web classes. Let's go down here to, like, I don't know, let's do week 14. That looks good. So you see here, this week update is a message basically saying, here's everything that we're doing this week. Here's what we're working on this week. And if you notice, there are some hyperlinks. So these hyperlinks, it mentions a responsibility, and then I give a hyperlink here. I have an assignment sheet. And so the student needs to access and read the assignment sheet for the essay. If they click on this hyperlink, it will take them directly to the course material for them to access. Okay? So basically, the week update should be kind of a one-stop place where you can use the coursework update, the week update, to access all the material you have to access and complete for each week. Here we have the assignment sheet. Here we have here a supplemental reading that's not in the textbook, so I've posted it here for him to access and read. It's a great story, by the way. Here we have a discussion board, so the student can click on the hyperlink here and go directly to the discussion board for the week. And we also have a homework assignment, so if I click this, it'll take us directly to it. I think the only thing I don't have here is like an assessment. But if you have a week that has an assessment, you will have a hyperlink taking you to that assessment, okay? If you read a course announcement, a course update, a news update that you don't understand, please do reach out to me as soon as possible. And that goes for any questions you have, guys. I'm happy to clarify things no matter what. It's what I'm paid for. It's what I love doing. It's important for your success if you have questions to ask them. So please do. Okay, starting week 1, starting now. I know you have an update to read right now, so please do read over it. You've listened to this video, so good for you. And of course, if you have any questions, do ask me. I look forward to a great semester with you, and I will see you on the discussion board soon. Bye-bye.